I love how you described this proposed ballot measure about pensions. You said
our pension reform measure.
Yep. You said that it is not a compromise. What do you mean by that?
Well, people like saying, everyone's got to get along. Look, our governments at all levels are in a financial crisis, and you cannot go along to get along. You have to make tough decisions. You have to make decisions based on principled leadership. And that's why I like talking about this ballot measure, not as a compromise, but as a consensus. We produced consensus around a number of very thorough reforms in the city's pension system that brought Mayor Jerry Sanders and myself together behind one single initiative, and also united a number of stakeholder groups, the business community, several other council members, and that is going to produce for San Diego a united front and the most significant pension reform that's going on right now in the nation, right here in San Diego.
And I'm glad you said that, because I'm excited about it, because literally everyone across the country is going to be looking at this consensus here as a model to how to move forward in their city if it's a similar problem here. And that's really exciting as we are and I talked about this last night. This is an example of San Diego defining the conservative revolution, not only in the state, but also across the country. So tell us, what is this ballot measure? What is the consensus?
Well, these are the three criteria I established very early on that I said we would have to use if we're going to get to a consensus. Number one is the ballot measure has to solve the problem. It has to end the deficits. It has to clear up the debt. Our city services have been slashed. Our services have been cut, and all the revenues have been diverted into the pension system. So whatever pension reform ballot measure that we advance has to solve the problem and end that deficit.
First of all, I love how that's so obviously. I think people are listening. They're like, well, yeah, but that's not obvious.
It wasn't obvious because so many previous attempts at pension reform, and even some of the proposals that were put on the table in recent months, didn't actually solve the problem. It nibbled around the edges. It kicked the can down the street. So the first criteria has to be, does it actually solve the problem? Second, does it end individual excessive pensions, where you see individual city employees spiking their pensions, earning more in retirement than they did actually serving the citizens in their job. And so the second criteria has to be, on an individual basis, does it end abusive and excessive individual pension payouts?
And how do you guys do that?
And third, are we able to show that under this pension system that it achieves a fairness standard, that city employees will receive retirement benefits that are no better and no worse than the average San Diego taxpayer who's footing the bill, in line with the local labor market? So those are the three criteria. It has to solve the problem. It has to end individual pension spiking and abusive pension payouts. And third, it has to be fair and equitable for city employees and the taxpayers footing the bill. Now, this ballot measure, as I said last night, if an idea saved money, if an idea helped advance those three criteria, we put it in the measure. So we basically move people to 401ks. That would be for all new hires. We are able to move forward with capping individual pensions by capping the highest pensionable pay. We prevent pension spiking by basing all new pension calculations on base salaries, not all the add-ons and specialty pays and bonus pays that have been included. And finally, we require that city employees pay their fair share for the cost of the pension benefits. We also have other reforms in there that provide more accountability and transparency. For example, if a city employee or city official is convicted of a felony, they lose their pension. All pension payouts will be posted online on the internet every year so the taxpayers know what individual pension payouts are being given out in the pension system. So this ballot measure really runs the gamut of reform and really solves the problem for San Diego.
Now you just threw there's kind of a lot of stuff going on there, but I think one of the most important parts is that it's a single thing. It's a single measure. How did that happen, and why is that so important?
Well, how it happened is, I laid out a budget and pension reform plan in November, right after the election when we defeated Proposition D, the sales tax increase. And, this is my approach to leadership, which is don't worry about what the politicians say. What you need to do is worry about what the public thinks and what the public wants. The public will react to that. And so the politicians will see the light if they feel the heat. So we've spent the last 6 months going around the city, meeting with all sorts of town councils, civic association, holding town halls, and really educating people as to what is happening in our budget and in our pension system and some of the alternatives. And, Mike, I've got to say, good old-fashioned public pressure helped us produce a consensus at City Hall. I am absolutely thrilled to be working with Mayor Sanders. We've had disagreements in the past, but I think we're going to be an unbeatable combination. The two of us bring a lot to the table. We're going to work real hard alongside of each other to make sure that we educate the voters and get the resources we need to win this campaign. Because I know the labor unions are not going to make it easy for us to pass this ballot measure.
No, and I want to ask you that. I mean, the money is just going to pour into San Diego against what you're doing here. So what arguments do you think the unions are going to come out with that we need to be prepared for with the truth on our side? But how are they going to try to confuse the issue, you think?
Well, ironically, Mike, the same arguments they're going to use in this campaign are the exact arguments they used to spike the pensions in the 1990s and the early 2000s. What they said when they were trying to convince the city council and the public back in the 1990s and the 2000s when they spiked pensions, they said, if you don't do this, we won't be able to recruit and retain quality city employees. That we must give guaranteed taxpayer-funded pensions for life. That we have to cover guaranteed health care for life for city employees on top of Medicare. Now, they use the scare tactic of losing police officers, losing firefighters, when the facts are the contrary. We do not have a recruitment retention crisis. And in fact, our pension reform measure, Mike, will allow city employees to have greater take-home pay because the cost of the pensions or the retirement benefits under our plan will be far more affordable. And that means that city employees on the same salary will end up having more take-home pay. And, recruitment specialists across the country have said take-home pay is the number one factor in recruitment and retention. And let's also remember that other cities and counties are also facing financial crises because of their pension systems. They're not hiring. So the city of San Diego, by embracing pension reform, will actually be in a better position to recruit or retain city employees to provide the services that our neighborhoods require.
Interesting, because I can see how that union argument would convince a lot of people that is the case. Because in the free market, if you pay more money to someone, then they can recruit the best employees. So wouldn't that also apply to the city? But you're saying there's other factors that go in as well.
Well, actually, they're making our argument for us because these pensions are so costly. The city employees are having more and more of their take-home pay diverted to the pension system, and because the city budget is diverted to the pension system, we don't have the ability to keep positions. We don't have the ability to even provide any sort of merit pay. And so the city's not in a position to offer employees the number one thing that drives recruitment retention, which is take-home pay.
Interesting.
Someone who's entering into a job doesn't think about what am I going to get in 30 years when I retire. What they think about is what am I actually able to take home in compensation, and how can I make it ends meet? And how does that stack up with other job opportunities? All
right, great stuff. We got about a minute or so left. First things first. This isn't on the ballot yet. What do we do? What's that process? And we have to sign signatures and stuff, right? So how do we be a part of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. What we need to do is we need to collect signatures, over 100,000 signatures.
What? That's a lot.
Well, that's grassroots democracy for you. But, Mike, I'm not worried about getting those signatures because I have heard from San Diegans. They are fed up and frustrated with the state of City Hall and these excessive pensions. So I believe there's a lot of people out there that are eager to sign those signature sheets so we can qualify the measure.
Sure. When do we start doing that?
We're going to start doing that in about 2 to 3 weeks. Once we get our title and summary back to the city attorney, then the process actually begins. We get 180 days to collect all of our signatures.
All right. Well, I think we'll try to get the we'll take bets on how long it takes. I bet if we talk about it enough, we can get it in a good 2 or 3 days. I'm sure. We'll get the word out best we can. City Councilman Carl DeMaio, what's a website we can learn more?
You can go to cleanupcityhall.com, and all the information about what we're doing is on that website.
Awesome, Carl. Appreciate your hard work very much.
Thanks, Mike.
Have a great day, brother. Fantastic.